Kate Kennedy. I rang... Oh, you're going to clap already. Kate Kennedy! I rang Kate and asked her if she wanted to do a poetry reading, and she said, poetry is the king of literature. The only times I do poetry these days are at funerals, so I'd love to come along and read. So, no one's died?
No. Not yet.
Not yet? Not yet, says the oldest one in the room.
No, not the oldest one in the room. That's Charlie or John.
No, there's a...
It's okay, you're allowed to be old.
Now the old people are arguing. Kate Kennedy. Many famous novelists have begun their careers as poets. They are all-round writers who excel in all forms of creative writing. Kate has 3 poetry collections: Joy Flight, Signs of Other Fires, and The Taste of River Water. New and selected poems which won the Victorian Premier's Literary Award C.J. Dennis Poetry Prize for 2011. Kate is the author of the highly acclaimed novel The World Beneath, which won the People's Choice Award in the New South Wales Premier's Literary Awards in 2010. She is an award-winning short story writer whose work has been published in Australia and overseas, including the New Yorker. Is that your... Did you sometimes as a writer you feel like you've kicked a goal? Did you feel like you kicked a goal when they said yes to you?
Yeah, I did. I didn't even send it in. It was someone else who sent it in. My publisher sent it in before he published the collection. So it was a lesson in not being so timid.
Wow. Okay. So that was before Dark Roots came out.
That's right. Yeah, we had to delay publication because New Yorker wanted publication at its first right. So we held off here. I think I got paid as much for that story in New Yorker as I got paid as an advance for the whole collection. So I bought a couch. Read the magazine.
Okay, so Dark Roots was shortlisted for the Steel Rudd Award. Anyway, there's lots of things that Kate has done, and there's nothing she can't do. So please welcome her, Kate Kennedy.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Phil, speaking of it being Mother's Day, sometimes it feels like when you hear your bio details read out, it's like something your mum might have written for you, It's like, stop. It's enough. So what will I start with? Should I start with announcing who I think the winner is of this afternoon, which is a... I'll do that later. No.
Do that last.
Do that last. Okay. We'll start with some poems. Oh, that's right. I got the microphone. I got the conch. Yes. And I've got 20 minutes, and John Flower said it has to be a rich 20 minutes. So let's have a go, shall we? We'll see how we go. Okay, Mother's Day. Let's start with something about mothers. In my parents' lounge room after Christmas lunch, I'm listening to my brother, the computer programmer, explain the principles of cyberspace. It's basically a system of binaries, he says, permutations of 0 and 1. So the data may be stored as, say, 00111001. My mother sighs next to us on the couch. She's knitting a cable knit cardigan. You kid, she says. I'll never understand how you get your brains around that. It's beyond me. And she goes back to her knitting. Pearl, pearl, plain, 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 pearl, pearl, plain. Yeah, good on your mum. Because I tell you what, if you can knit a sweater, by God, you can program a computer. Yeah, I'll come to some new ones a bit later, if that's okay. What have I been thinking I might do? Because it's so cold, and I thought I might just try one that's going to take you to somewhere warm and beautiful just for a minute. This one's called How to Eat a Guava. First, rinse the fruit. Rub the skin and inhale. Make an incision with the eye tooth, a bite with a seesawing motion to break that curved yellow moon surface. Eat it like you would kiss a long-lost lover, like you would taste the skin behind an ear. You cannot worry about juice. Separate the seeds from the flesh with your tongue, sift them down your throat. Recall custard in expensive affair-soaked hotels, lemon mousse drowning the mouth in reckless garden sun-sweat tussles. Eat it like you would plunge into a river at moonlight, like you would open your mouth and let the river in, like you would eat a stolen pear, a hot fig lush as a love bite. Eat it like you would crush it onto skin, lower your head confusing perfume with texture, tasting scent under a collarbone, like you would lick a line of sweat up a spine. Bite skin, flesh, seeds, juice. Eat it fast, like you are ravenous, parched, gluttonous, flushed with secrecy. Eat it slowly. Lick your fingers. I was reminded of when, let me think who it was now. I think it was you, I think it was Ian, when you were reading Au revoir, about that idea of just looking at what's happening in the natural world and feeling that sense of, bye, that kind of helplessness, that we're a teeny tiny microcosmic thing on a speck. So I'm going to read one of my own in that vein, if that's okay. This is, I guess this is for you and for that poem. This is called Locusts Arrive in the City. Locusts arrive in the city, having eaten the countryside bare on the way, thrumming through the thick air like cargo carriers, carapaces crackling and mandibles like a miracle of nature, jawing back and forth like a typewriter carriage knocking out Pulp Fiction in a sweaty 50s hotel room, the overhead fan clacking like a million transparent wings. Locusts arrive in the city, a rippling forward offensive ordered by a crazed general waving one barbed leg, hard and helmeted and identical with heavy windscreen casualties. Their enemies' metal shells glitter in the broil. Mirage heat rises from the battlefield. They have devoured everything in their path. And like an army, they turn to the prize of the city now, with mindless, covetous eyes, a trail of famine in their wake, carolling havoc, insane with hunger, down to the wire. They will not seem like agents of death, smashing into harmless protein against your radiator grill, or ricocheting into your supersized coffee as you dream away your hot lunch hour on a bench. But look up at sunset, and here comes the wilderness, pouring through some rent in the balance sheet. Go ahead, put your hand over your cup. The pot boiler's almost finished, and it ends badly. Just one for fathers, maybe, since I've got to read some more about mothers in a minute. There's a very beautiful poem about fathers by Robert Hayden called Those Winter Sundays, American poet. And he wrote about how he always took his father for granted so much when he was a boy. And there's a great couplet in his poem, Those Winter Sundays, when he says, what did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? Which always made me think of my own dad. So this is one about my dad and my own childhood. Perhaps it was yours too, if you grew up in the suburbs. This is called How to Play Marine Boy. First, what you need is a Clark's 2'6" backyard swimming pool. Gleaming surreal aqua in the dead rectangle of brown summer grass between the hills hoist and the shed. This will be Marine Boy's universe. Next, you need a bucket of water to dunk your feet into before you climb in. This water must be blood warm, full of floating specks of mown grass. Your dad has an idea it keeps grass and dirt out of the pool, which is also chlorinated so heavily his kid's hair is gradually turning green. Early mornings in the cool, he is out there, netting leaves off the surface in a gesture children do not recognise yet as love. So get into the water and wait around. Swan forward into the soupy blue. You must hold your nose when you attempt the backward somersault and thresh around the edges to form a sluggish whirlpool. When you cast yourself into it, close your eyes, Scream. Now you are ready to become Marine Boy. Unwrap a Wrigley Spearmint chewing gum stick and say, now I must take an Oxytab. Chew it. Dive to rescue and escape, aching with the belief that you can breathe underwater. You are in the coral kingdom now, twisting and folding like reckless dolphins. Forests of seaweed wave overhead as you breathe sweet spearmint and harness seahorses. Wet each foot carefully before you enter this benign and weightless element, this small blue oasis. Oh, we do not recognise it yet. We do not recognise it. You know what? How about we don't... Let's not clap between the poems. It feels a bit... Let's just...
It gives us something to do.
Yes. You could shift restlessly, maybe that would... You know that one, like the other poem about the binaries and my mum sitting knitting? I really like those kind of poems that seem to arrive in the window fully formed for you, you know, and they fly over and land on your lap and you think, am I the only person who just noticed that? And indeed you are. That was yours. And it just needs so little adjustment or rearrangement. And that exactly happened just as I described it, and so did this moment. It seems weird reading it in this rainy weather, but this was in the middle of the drought, like 2005, 2006, up in the northeast. I was actually in Euroa, and I was judging a poetry competition. There was also a photography prize at the same time, and this is what happened. It's called 8x10 colour enlargements, $16.50. Let me lay it out for you. A rural photography competition in a local town hall, and the woman next to me, sitting with her husband and 2 children, had travelled 3 hours to be there. Her kids were quiet, with the soft, cowed politeness of remote life, a farm up in the lonely dry stretch of the Western Districts, her husband's boots smelling of polish, and he, preoccupied as the judge made her speech, thinking no doubt of the work waiting for him back at home and the cost of filling up the car to return. He looked his hands on his knees, and then over at the photos on the wall, the dead tree silhouette and sunset photos, the cobweb misted with dew at dawn photos, as his wife drank it all in Hungary and then stood to be awarded second prize. I want you to imagine the brief economical smile they exchanged when she sat down again holding her certificate. Her landscape photo on display, carefully mounted on card, enlarged at the chemists in town, budgeted for, cautiously admired. The judge announced the winning photo, a massive sunset shot, the colours juiced with Photoshop, and someone else stood for that applause and that check. Then the judge added in passing, there'd been another photo she'd admired, which would have been the winner, except its theme was not images of rural life as specified in the competition rules. And she took a picture of the woman's 2 children gazing transfixed out of a window, the light pouring in, their faces upturned with wonder, and the woman stood again and collected this photograph and tucked it with her certificate on her lap, saying nothing. Later, as her husband checked his watch and spoke softly to his kids, a hand on his daughter's fair head, I told her how much I loved the picture and what a wonderful photographer I thought she was, and she smiled and looked at her photo. You know, she said, it didn't break the rules. This was the first time my children ever saw rain. They left then, back to their car, to the long drive home, to the big bone-dry expanse of land beyond salvaging, with a second prize certificate and so few words between them. No speaking up, no protest or complaint or claim of being wronged or misrepresented, but I think even now about how the light streamed onto her children's rapt faces, the tired love in her husband's hand and her running to find her camera to frame it. The smell of rain-marked dust, rare momentary joy. They left and all this passed into silence, unremarked and unacknowledged, and that's why I'm telling you now.